Hello again, and welcome to the session, which will be about making the most of opportunities with protection business and raising the importance of cover to clients. I'm joined by Cameron Parsons, Head of Sales at Uinsure, and Tracy Sutherland, Business Development Manager at Business Life. Thank you both for joining us. Before we get started, I will kick off with the learning objectives of this session, which are exploring effective strategies for understanding and transacting protection products, gaining insights into best practices for recommending and integrating protection products, developing strategies to strengthen client engagement and communication on protection benefits. And again, you can ask questions at the end of this session to Cameron and Tracy, so feel free to submit them throughout and we can get to that at the end. So the current conversation of protection is always important, but possibly even more so with the current cost of living crisis. Recent research from Vitality found 87% of adults in the UK had considered cancelling their policy, citing job loss and inflationary pressures as a reason behind this. In light of this, let's kick this discussion off with why client retention is so important. So Tracy, welcome, and I'll ask you for your views first.
Okay, thank you, Shekina, and good morning, everybody. No doubt about it, retention is key when it comes to life protection, and probably not just around protection, but just across the board in financial products, I suppose. As you alluded to, there's generally sort of three main reasons why people cancel their life insurance. Affordability, we know where it's all a big massive thing at the moment, divorce, and then just some general change of circumstances. But there are others as well. You'll be surprised how many people actually cancel it by mistake, as they're not familiar with the direct debits that are coming out. And whilst it's unlikely that you're ever going to save everything, that's just an impossibility. If you can find something that resonates with the client, then generally, you'll get a bit more buy-in. Now, you guys in today's market, if you like, I've got a load more in your toolkit. I mean, historically, and certainly when I was an advisor, trying to get client buy-in sometimes around life products could be difficult, especially if they were just looking at a mortgage and that's all they wanted to do. That's all they want to sort. But today, in today's market, and certainly in the last couple of years or 12 months for sure, you've got a lot more in your bag. They're never going to always sign up for it. They need to recognise what is important from it, I suppose. And I found in my experience, if you can give somebody something tangible so they can actually feel something or get something from it, you've got a way better chance of keeping them involved. I mean, and let's face it, it's a lot of hard work to pull these cases together. It doesn't matter where you are in the process. You could be doing the admin or the research, the advice, or all three parts of it. And there's nothing worse than spending hours and hours and weeks and sometimes months on cases just to drop off shortly after they've been placed on risk. And these benefits that we're going to talk about a little bit more, I should imagine today, is going to be one of the ways that you can use to prevent this from happening. We've just got to make sure that they know about them, understand how to access them, and this is where you come in, and this is an education piece. It's an education piece from us to you and from you to them, and sharing that knowledge is what is going to be key and will lead to better retention.
Yeah, of course, Tracy. And Cameron, I'll come to you with that. So why is client retention so important?
Yes, I think I'd echo a lot of what Tracy's saying is finding something that's sort of more tangible. Insurance in particular feels like that thing that you have to have. It can feel like a necessary evil, and people sort of buy it when they're emotive at that point. And as time goes on, they maybe forget or lose that emotional drive as to when they bought their policy. So, things like stories, I think, are really beneficial and giving people tangible evidence. There's stats, from insurers always putting out. I don't want to call it doomsdaying because you don't necessarily want to scare people, but it's just making sure that they feel looked after and that you make it clear to them that your service over time is to sort of remind them why they bought that policy in the first place, why it's important to have it, and sort of what their drivers were. And all of that information is captured, right? Because you're going to write suitabilities, you're going to do all that stuff when you make that first sale. So obviously it helps build a rapport with the clients. people's life circumstances are also always changing. People get engaged. Life usually gets more complicated. You get more responsibilities, not usually less as time goes on. So it's not necessarily like guilt tripping them or pulling on those negatively. It's just reminding them that, look, remember, I'm here to look after you, your whole financial perspective, and all of these products play a pivotal role in that. And when we sort of prescribed you, almost like a doctor, it's like they're trying to stop taking their medicine and go take, just go, well, I'm just going to do something else. It's like, no, hang on. Remember, we were doing this for these reasons, and just bring that back to the forefront of their minds.
Yeah. And following on from what you just said, let's talk about why client relationships must be established from the outset. So you'd mentioned a little bit about building a rapport. So what is that can be done to build that relationship?
So I think the biggest thing to do is obviously to know your clients and their individual circumstances is definitely going to help build rapport. I think the biggest thing, we're all human at the end of the day. Getting to see people face to face, the technology is great, but maybe second or third time you meet that person, or trying to see them face to face in real life in between there just really helps. Yeah. I think building trust, the foundations of trust are sort of like built on vulnerability. So if you're giving them circumstances that you've encountered, or as a financial service professional where you've helped people, or just examples of why these things are important, you then make them feel safe and tailored, that the cover and relationships being tailored to them, which is all genuine, right? Like, I think you will have more fulfillment from your own work. You'll enjoy the client engagements and reactions. We all work in services. I bet you everyone in the room has gone and stayed at a nice hotel. It's the same kinds of things that make those places better, is what makes maintain these relationships with these customers better.
Mm-hmm. And Tracy, what view do you have on this?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everything that Cam's just said, to be honest. And I think it's not just about us talking to or even at the clients. It's making sure that they're listening. And in order for them to listen, you've got to find out what floats their boat, I suppose. Everybody is different. You're not going to get the same buy-in from somebody who's 25, who's 45. They're in a totally different part of their life, and different things are going to be the things that sort of get their attention. But I think the important bit is getting that good communication right from the beginning, not halfway through the process, not at the end, at completion, or whatever it is. It's right at the beginning. I read something the other day that said the first 20 seconds of meeting with a person through any means, that's over the telephone, over Zoom, in face, is actually the bit that sets the tone of the relationship. Even if that relationship continues for many months, many years even, it can set the tone. So it's really important. And that's not just face to face, that's on the phone, that's in emails. I mean, I bet all of you will resonate with this, is if somebody writes to you by email and they make loads of spelling mistakes, or they call you by the wrong name when you've clearly sort of given your name or whatever, it does make you judge things differently. So I think the communication is absolutely key. So if you get it right first place, then you're almost halfway there through the process. And if you do have to go and deliver some more information later on down the line that isn't quite as palatable as you'd like it to be, if that relationship is in there, then it's going to be a lot easier. And it kind of goes hand in hand with the know your customer that's been around forever and a day now, and just understanding them. The amount of information that you can gather through a basic conversation, and it can just be chatting about what they did yesterday, what they did today. I talk to brokers all day long, and I note things all the time, just key things. If they've told me they were going on holiday, I'll jot that down. If they tell me they're about to have a baby, I'll jot that down. If they tell me they hate shopping in Aldi, I'll jot that down. And then somewhere along the line, because our relationship's going to go for a while, I will bring that up, and that makes your client feel important. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is communicate well, communicate straight away, gather that information, make that person feel like they are the most important person in your life at that present time. And I think that will give you so much kudos moving forward. and will help you eventually to hang on to those clients. Because let's face it, people buy from people. When all said and done, that is their preferred route. So if they've got a relationship with you, then they are going to go to you before they do anything else.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. There's some very good points made from both of you there. So now let's move on to value added benefits and how a wider understanding of this can aid conversations with clients about protection. And Tracy, I'll come back to you on that one.
Okay, so this is the exciting bit. So this is the bit that floats my boat, if you like. So we could talk, let's face it, we talk about life protection. People don't want to talk about it. As I alluded to, it's like they want something tangible, and nobody wants to talk about the tangibility of death, critical illness, or any of those things that go hand in hand. It's a difficult conversation. It's way better than it was, but it's still a hard one. So, but these benefits, and they're from all providers, everybody's offering something. We all have little niches. Everybody's got something, but it is something for nothing, if you like. But in order to be able to sell the benefits of that to your clients, you're going to have to understand the offering yourself. You're never going to remember what the providers offer. It's an impossibility. But you can have a holistic view. You can have a crib sheet that tells you who does what. They're all the same, really, when it comes down to it. There'll just be little tweaks. And you can, again, make notes for yourself to work out who does what. There's 24/7-hour doctor consultations, there's second medical opinions, there's prescriptions that can be sent directly to your client or to a chemist of their choice. And there's physio appointments, mental health appointments. I could sit here and probably talk to you about it for an hour. But it's truly something that really works well for your client. And remember, they're getting that as part of the package in most cases. So works really well. But you've got to believe in it as well. So you've got to believe in it, because why is somebody going to believe in something that you don't believe in it? So that might mean that you need to educate yourself a little bit more on it. I don't know, you may even find that somebody in your family or your friends already use something like this. So ask them about it. If you feel that, it hasn't worked well or you don't understand it, speak to your BDMs. This is what we're here for. We love talking about all the positivities of our products. We love it. We don't want to be dealing with problems. We want to talk about the whole thing that can great and help you with your clients. So absolutely get in touch with us, and we would love it. So a final point on this one, when I always talk to brokers about the value added benefits, because to me this resonates with me, because there's nothing more that annoys me than trying to get a doctor's appointment, right? So the scenario is you need a doctor's appointment, you get up, you're not going to get through till 8 o'clock in the morning, but you start trying at 5 to. You can keep ringing and ringing, it's engaged, it's closed. And then finally, at just a few seconds past 8 o'clock in the morning, it starts to ring, only to be greeted with the, oh, right, welcome. You are now the 72nd person in the queue. And you're like, how can it be 72nd person in the queue when it only opened like 5 seconds ago? And then you go, no, I will be patient. Let's just wait. And then finally get through an hour later, only to find out that all the doctor's appointments have gone, and they ask you to call back the next day. Now, some of the value added benefits, and I hone in on this one because it's my personal favorite, will allow you 24/7-hour doctors, so you would never ever have to experience that again, or your clients would never have to experience again. So it's about finding stories. I think Cam alluded to it just in his last comments about telling a story, finding something that resonates with your client, something that they can believe in, and it will go far.
Yeah, I'm sure it's something we could all relate to. And Cameron, do you have a view on this too?
Yeah, I think in the GI home insurance world, slightly different in that the space has just never really done benefits in that same way. But what we have been really focused on, and I speak generally for the whole industry, not the GI industry, not just Uinsure, but is really focusing on giving advisors or firms different ways to distribute GI to their customers. I think GI is unique in the mortgage space, being the only product that the lender is going to insist or make mandatory that the customer has, at least the buildings insurance elements. So it's just a huge opportunity. I think there's not a lot of firms that are necessarily engaging with it or aware that how technologies have sort of evolved to enable making it as easy as if you want to just refer off the customer to us 3 bits of information. You don't need any of your permissions, like GI permissions, because it's a referral. There's no compliance work, to all the way fully fledged advice. And again, those are 3-question quotes now. That whole world has become really quite easy to navigate. But I think more broadly, sort of what I'm getting at is that firms should revisit and think about how they can approach GI with their customers, being the fact that every mortgage customer is going to need to have it, and tapping into one of these different solutions. So am I going to refer it over for the really tech savvy people? We've launched Uinsure CX, which is a totally automated solution that will send a customer text and email throughout their mortgage journey, enabling them to buy a policy. It's a high quality policy, you still get commission, there's no compliance work, that's great. Or if you want to do advice, absolutely, then you can use the advice platforms. There's lots of providers out there who will make that available to you. And then the one other quick piece I guess I'll touch on is that there's a company called De Facto. They rate all insurance policies in the UK, predominantly in the home world. We've actually got a tool that we make available that gives you a grid, so it can give you a comparison against what the customer's current policy is versus the one that you're selling them in a really simple grid. There's little like eyes where you can click on it or explain exactly what each cover item is, and the grid is like 10 rows, not 100 of rows. So it's really simple. But that's really helpful for like Remo PT customers, or if you're having those conversations we were having earlier about retention, is to check, a customer says, well, I'm actually thinking of moving over to this policy, or I did move to this policy. You can then very quickly pull that up. There's a little print button, and you can say, oh, well, did you know, I know maybe you saved £5, but you're no longer covered for these things. And these are, I've had customers in the past, as an example, that have had a problem by not being covered for those things. So I'd highly recommend you, maybe revisit. So it's those kinds of things that it will also make that customer feel like they're being taken care of, that you're the expert, that, they can trust you to look after their best interest.
Yeah, thank you. That's definitely some interesting insight into the resources that are available. And so the next question I'll put to Tracy only. So how can administrators deal with cancellations by understanding early warning reports and effective objection handling?
Okay, so in my opinion, it can be the little things that can make the difference. And I think we all forget, we work in this industry, so we understand words, our language that we use, and what we might think is quite simple for us. So we're probably all on computers all the time, tapping into different portals, going here, whizzing all around, the place. A lot of our clients will not be in that familiar, or they might not be, and these are the sort of things that we need to remember. It's always going a little bit over and above, I think, that will make gratefulness. And as I said earlier, I love telling stories, and I'll tell this story because it only happened 2 weeks ago. I was on the train going to London, something that I do all the time. Train was chaos, something that happens all the time. Everybody got double book seats, happens all the time. So to me, it was nothing. And then halfway along the journey, these 2 little old ladies got on the train, bless them. They must have been in their early 80s with all these tickets, all these bags, and they got duplicated seats. And anyway, a very long story short, I sorted the seats out, got people to shift around a bit, got them sat down together and whatever. Something that I would just normally do, help somebody out, the goodness of my heart, I suppose. And I kind of thought they felt like my mom. And then I'm sitting there minding my own business, and I get a little tap on the shoulder, and they gave me a box of Maltesers. And they went, just say thank you for helping me. We're going to get off the train. So what that was, and the reason I've told that story, was that was just going over and above a little bit, just doing something a little bit different, sort of thinking to yourself, how would I like some help with this? So this is how I think that you guys need to perhaps look at your client in that sort of sense of the word. So, for example, help them set up their value-added benefits. So it differs from provider to provider. Some will have portals, some might need to go into a couple of portals. Some, like ourselves, we only have one portal, so it's nice and easy. But help them help them with the usernames and passwords. Obviously, you don't need to set those up for them because there would be all kinds of data protection rules going wrong there, but help them, assist them. I mean, we've got on our websites, as will other providers, ways to use these things and sort of little videos how to help, but go and help them. Actually sit with them, you know, as you would if you were talking them through some part of the key facts illustration or thesis or whatever it is. As I've said, I honestly believe these value-added benefits are going to make the difference in reducing the cancellations. And I think if you therefore can get them to access them and then get them to use them, and it might be that you know, diarise something for 3 months' time to give them a call and ask them if they've used any of the benefits that came as part of the package. But, you know, it's just doing those little bits of extra things that, if that helps reducing the policy cancellations and makes them feel great, and then that in turn perhaps gets them to pass your name on to another person because they had a great experience with you, you're not only perhaps making a client for life, you're gaining extra clients, and do you know what, you'll probably feel pretty great about it yourself as well, because it's nice when somebody says thank you. I felt rather marvelous when this person gave me some Maltesers. Okay. It was like, you know, I can go to the shop and buy myself a box of Maltesers, no problem, but how nice. I felt like, wow, I'm a good Samaritan for the day. I slept easy that night. Yeah. So just go over and above, I think, is my answer to your question.
And that is a very good encounter that you did have there. And sorry, I just jumped ahead of myself, and I wasn't meant to put the question just to Tracy. So Cameron, I do want to ask that to you as well. How can administrators deal with cancellations by understanding early warning reports and effective objection handling?
That's right. So I think I'd echo a lot of the things Tracy was saying. Going over and above is important. So GI is unique in that it renews every year. Obviously, the practice has been that auto renewal for most firms or most clients is sort of the way it's set up. I mean, our average customer sort of stays with us for 9 years, right? I think it's engaging with those customers every year. So just because the policy is going to auto renew, you know, their circumstances may have changed. It shows you're taking care in them. It also helps engage for any other cross-selling. So, you know, for example, if you as an administrator reach out to their customer at renewal, maybe they go, oh, actually, we're doing some building works and we actually need to come talk to you about our mortgage, or we need to talk about upgrading our life policy or protection or other things. So it's almost everything that happens in your home is almost anything that happens in your life that's material is going to be impacting your home. Maybe you get engaged, you've got an engagement ring. Maybe you get a new sofa, maybe you get a dog and you need to get pet protection added. So all of those kinds of things are really nice to build that rapport, to build that customer longevity, to build that understanding of that customer circumstances, that those soft facts that we've been talking about today.
Yeah, of course. And we will now take some questions from the audience. We do have one in asking for Cameron to please repeat the system that you were speaking about to compare policies.
It's called de facto compare. So I will send, we can get a link sent out afterwards, but if you just go to uinsure.co.uk/compare, it will, you can access the site for free. Otherwise, if you log into our quote portal, on any quotes, there's a little compare button. You just click it and it will launch the comparison tool. It's completely free. We pay for all your guys' licenses, so you can access it through ourselves.
Yeah, thank you. And we will now take some other questions. So thank you both for your answers in the main session. So firstly, some people might believe that they are better off looking at policies online without any advice at all. So how can administrators make sure they have stressed the importance of exploring their options with the guidance of an advisor? So Tracy, can I come to you with that one first?
Yeah, I mean, this happens a lot and it worries me. I'm not going to lie. I find it completely worrying. And I think Cam said something earlier about, would you go online and buy your antibiotics from a website? I mean, I know there are some people that do, but do you really want to do that? Would you know, is that something that you would do? So I always used to, as an advisor, say that to my clients. You know, it's like you need the expert. You need to go and speak to somebody and make sure that they're getting what they get. I mean, this has happened to me on several occasions, but I had somebody who came to me and I was looking at them to rebroke their insurance. I was doing a mortgage for them, and as part of that process, I would always look at their insurance and make sure that, you know, they got what was needed because circumstances change and so on and so forth. And my client was adamant that he'd got £500,000 worth of critical illness cover, and he was absolutely adamant it was costing him £16.34 a month. Now, anybody who knows anything about insurance will know that it doesn't matter what or who or how old he was, that is an absolute impossibility. But he was adamant and bet me a bottle of champagne that he'd get his policy and show it to me, because he bought it online and he was super savvy. And he was a smart bloke, he owned his own company, he earned plenty of money, he was savvy, as I would have called him. And he'd bought this policy, and when we checked into him, he'd actually got £5,000 critical illness cover, not £500,000. He got a little bit didn't look at the dots where the dots were, he dropped off a few zeros. And those are the sort of things that happen, when people go and take their own policies out. And a lot of the times if people just go online and just buy it, there's no recourse either. And that to me is what would resonate with me. Yeah, okay, take that policy. You can go online and get one, Mr. Customer, but if there's any problem with it or, any issues, who are you going to go to? Because you can almost guarantee you won't find a person at the end of the phone. Because if you ever try to call somebody from a call centre type place, almost impossible. So, as I said before, people like buying from people. And I think if you can point out the possible issues that will come from just purchasing something online willy-nilly, then it will perhaps make people come to you a little bit more easily.
Yeah, of course. And Cameron, you did mention the value of some online resources, but I'm guessing you will still, of course, advocate for going for advice.
Yeah, so those resources are just like a comparison. You can't, it's not buying or anything. It's just an independent party that rates the policies. So you got, experts who are just comparing them like for like, so you know what you're getting. But I think the biggest thing to think about is the online platforms are standard, and they create a very standardized journey, and humans by nature are not standard. So if you want something that's going to be tailored to your customer, that's going to have the right features and benefits for what they need, then they're just by default, it's not really going to be great. The other biggest thing to think about, we always talk about, like, if anyone's watched Game of Thrones, the ice wall that lives around the village, or, I'm not super au fait with it, but that kind of analogy is, if you think of the intermediary world sitting within that wall, what happens is it becomes a little crack when every customer is going to, or some customers are buying, even GI is the biggest one, because it's felt like quite a commoditized, easy product to, it's not as complicated to understand. The problem is those sites have a lot of resources, people, they collect data and consent to communicate with those customers and sell them everything from broadband to life insurance, mortgages. So what happens is you effectively start referring your customer away for free to the site, your biggest competitor. So, I don't need to motivate advisors. I'm not going to those sites for those reasons. But the biggest thing to highlight to your customer is that absolutely have a comparison if you need to. But what they'll then often find is all quite complicated. And actually, when you point out the flaws in some of those policies to them, they go, actually, I'm out of my depth here. I know this thing made me feel like it's easy, but it's harder than it looks.
Yeah, of course. And speaking a little bit, because touch about clients that might go away and do things independently. Sometimes they don't buy cover straight away during the mortgage process. They might think about it. So what is the best way to recapture a client who's gone away to think about their options? What's the best time to do this, and how much contact should an administrator and a broker keep with that client? So Tracy, I'll ask that one to you.
Yeah, I think that's quite a tough one, isn't it? Because I think people work in different ways. So firms work in different ways, so advisors work in different ways, and they have a different approach. And then you've got your different type of clients as well. Some clients will want to think about it. Absolutely. And you've got to give them the time to think about it. And again, this goes back to the earlier points about communication. If you've already built that relationship up, if you've already started gathering information, you should know at this point what type of client you've got, and then you can address it accordingly. Again, we don't want the hard sell. Nobody wants that. Everybody knows that just doesn't work. Again, we don't want the guilt tripping or anything like that. But we have a duty of care to highlight what will happen if they don't take cover out. If they go take it out elsewhere, again, on my previous point, have they been advised on it? Is it what they need? Are they sure that it is? And I think it's just, again, keeping in touch. That communication, when you get a client in this scenario, in any kind of financial product, again, retention is key. So instead of just seeing that, oh, this is like for a year or 2 years or 5 years or whatever it may be, if you see that that client is for life, then your means of communication are going to be along those lines. And let's face it, if they do go and take that policy elsewhere or whatever, why not say, okay, let me have a look at it then. Just let me just make sure it is what you think it is. And I can bet you bottom dollar you'll find a fair few that isn't what they think it is, and they will love that. And yes, maybe you won't win them all, but I think duty of care, consumer duty rolled in with that, keeping that client happy for life, again, I think it's a good thing to do. You're not going to win them all. I think that's the bit that you need to remember. As long as you can sleep at night and do everything that you can for that client, and if the worst was to happen, you don't feel bad that you hadn't given them the opportunity to, take out that protection. Because let's face it, we all need it. There's no doubt about it. We all need it in one capacity or another. Whether they can afford it, whether it, is the most important thing is perhaps the quavering point, if you like.
Of course. And Karen, as we round this off, do you have anything to add to what Tracy has said?
No, just very briefly, I think the one risk you always have of just waiting to their refinance is that customers start to feel like you're just their cash cow, and you're just reaching out to them when you want something, not actually to help them. So I think what Tracy was saying earlier about going over and above what sort of the basic is, I think, frequent touch points with that client to just understand if any circumstances have changed, birthdays, Christmas, Easter, these kinds of things are also helpful to make them feel like you are actually forming a relationship as opposed to just trying to extract things from them. So refinancing at the absolute minimum, but I think in between there, if you've got the time, the workflows, the systems process, all that stuff is great too.
Of course. And that is a good point to end on. So thank you both for your time today. And I'm sure everyone listening had something to take away from it. It was very insightful.